Okay, next we're going to talk about subtracting integers. Okay. So before we talk about adding integers, now we're going to talk about subtracting integers. So to subtract an integer, that's the same thing as adding its additive inverse. So 6 minus 7 is going to give us the exact same answer as 6 plus negative 7. So when we have a subtraction sentence, we are going to rewrite it as an addition sentence because we know the addition rules that we learned before. So that's what we're going to be doing with these. So copy this down. 8 minus 13. So we want to change this to an addition sentence. So I change my minus to a plus, and I have to change my 13 to a negative 13. So 8 minus 13 is the same thing as 8 plus negative 13. Now I'm going to think back to my negative rules when I'm adding. So if my signs are different, I'm going to find the difference in the absolute values. I'm going to put my larger absolute value first, minus my smaller absolute value. So 13 minus 8 is 5. And then we'll be positive or negative. We negative because 13 was larger, and it was originally negative. So negative 13. I'm sorry, negative 5. Wrote down the wrong thing. So 13 minus 8 is 5. So I look at my absolute values. My absolute value 13 is larger, and it was originally negative, so that tells me my answer is going to be negative. So 8 minus 13, or 8 plus negative 13, is negative 5. Okay, copy this one down. Negative 10 minus 7. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this. My first number stays the same. It always stays the same. My subtraction turns into an addition, and my 7 turns into a negative 7. So I have negative 10 plus negative 7. My signs are now the same, so I add them together. So that's going to give me negative 17. So when we change our subtraction sentences to addition sentences, then we get to use the exact same rules that we learned yesterday. Okay, so try these three. Change your subtraction sentences to addition sentences, and then solve them. Okay, pause this if you need more time. So we have 6 minus 12, so it's going to be 6 plus negative 12. So what I'm looking for is I want to see you rewriting your equations. So I want you to take your subtraction sentence and rewrite it as an addition sentence before you solve it. That'll help to prevent making little mistakes while we're working these out. So 6 minus 12 is the same thing as 6 plus negative 12. So I subtract my absolute values, and my answer is going to be negative 6 because 12 is larger and was originally negative. Okay, we'll do the same thing for B. That's negative 20 plus negative 15. My signs are now the same. So I'm just going to add 20 plus 15 is 35, and they're both negative, so it's going to be negative 35. So if my signs are the same, we just add them together. If my signs are different, we find the difference in the absolute values. So negative 22 minus 26 becomes plus negative 26. Again, now my signs are the same, so I add them together, so we end up with negative 48. Okay, copy this one down. 1 minus negative 2. So this is a little bit different. So when we have minus and negative, let's look at this on the number 1. So if I have 1, When I subtract, I typically go to the left. But when I subtract a negative, I go to the right. I do the opposite. What's another reason that we would go to the right on the number line? If we're adding, we go to the right. So when you subtract a negative, that's the same thing as adding. So 1 minus negative 2 is the same thing as 1 plus 2. We get the same answer. But which one's easier to figure out? This one is. And so that's why we're going to change. When we have minus and negative, it's just going to change into a plus. And so my answer is going to be 3. So copy this one down. Find negative 10 minus negative 7. So I'm going to rewrite this. My minus and negative turns into a plus, so that's negative 10 plus 7. My signs are now different, so I need to find the difference in my absolute values. So that's 3, and will my answer be positive 3 or negative 3? It could be negative 3. Why? 10 is larger. The absolute value of 10 is larger than the absolute value of 7. And 10 was originally negative. So my answer is going to be negative. So when you have minus and negative, it turns into a plus. Don't forget you have to turn both the minus and the negative. You have to get rid of both. Okay, so try these 3, please. Okay, pause this if you need more time. So 4 minus negative 12, I want you to check your answers. Minus a negative turns into a plus. So that's 4 plus 12, which is 16. Negative 15 minus negative 5. So I'm going to rewrite this. Negative 15 plus 5. And minus the negative turns into a plus. So my signs are now different, so I need to find the difference in my absolute values. So it's 15 minus 5, which is 10. And will my answer be positive or negative? It will be negative because 15 is larger, and it was originally negative. So negative 10 is my answer. And remember, 10 and negative 10 are not the same thing. If your answer is negative 10, but you write down 10, your answer is wrong. So you need to be very careful with your negatives. So 18 minus negative 6, that is the same thing as 18 plus 6, which is equal to 24. Okay, so check your answers on that, please. Okay, now we're going to take what we know about plugging in numbers for variables and combining it with our new negative rules. So we have x minus y, so I'm going to plug in my number for x, negative 6, minus my number for y is negative 5. Make sure you don't confuse your minus and your negative. That's why the parentheses are a good idea, so that we don't accidentally write it down wrong. We don't want to forget to write down our negative. We'll get the wrong answer. So I'm going to rewrite this. My minus and negative turns into a plus 5. Negative 6 plus 5. My signs are different, so I find the difference. It's going to be 1. And my answer is going to be positive or negative? It's going to be negative. 6 is larger, and it was originally negative. So negative 6 plus 5 is negative 1. Okay, copy this one down. N minus n. If n is equal to negative 15 and n is equal to 8. So I'm going to plug in my numbers. M is negative 15 minus n is 8. So I'm going to rewrite this as an addition sentence. Plus, this becomes negative 8 My signs are now the same, so I just add them together. What's 15 plus 8? 23. So negative 15 plus negative 8 is negative 23. So when your signs are the same, you can just add them together. Okay, so try solving these three problems, please. Go ahead and pause this and take a moment to do that. Okay, so I want you to check your answers. So b minus 10, that's negative 8 minus 10. We're going to rewrite this as an addition sentence. Okay. And I want you to always rewrite them as an addition sentence until we become more comfortable with this. So, but on this test that we're going to take, I want to see these written as addition sentences. So negative 8 plus negative 10, our signs are now the same, so I just add them together. Negative 18. A minus b, that's going to be 5 minus negative 8. My minus and negative turns into a plus. So I have 5 plus 8, which is 13. Then c minus a, that's negative 9 minus 5. So I'm going to rewrite this as an addition sentence. So I have negative 9 plus negative 5. My signs are the same, so I add them together, so it's going to be negative 14. Okay, copy this one down. The temperatures on the moon vary from negative 173 degrees Celsius to 127 degrees Celsius. Find the difference between the maximum and minimum temperatures. Okay, so find the difference. What does that mean we're doing? We're going to subtract. So we're going to subtract the maximum number. Which one's my largest number? That's 127. Minus my minimum number, which is negative 173. So I'm going to rewrite this as an addition sentence. Minus the negative turns into plus. And 127 plus 173 is going to be 300 degrees Celsius. So let's look at this on a number line so we can kind of see what we're doing. So we want to know the total distance from up here all the way down here. So this section is 127 units, and this section is 173 units. So we add those together to get our 300 units total. Okay, so that's what we're doing. So minus and negative turns into a plus. Okay, so copy this one down and take a moment to work it out, please. Brenda had a balance of negative $52 in her account. The bank charged her a fee of $10 for having a negative balance. What is her new balance? So take a moment to work that out. Okay. So we start off with negative $52. Then we're charged a fee. If we're charged a fee, is that addition or subtraction? That's subtraction. They're taking money out of our account. So we're subtracting $10 from our account balance. So now we're going to rewrite this as an addition sentence. So that's negative 52 plus negative 10. My signs are now the same, so I add them together. So negative 52 plus negative 10 is negative 62. So her new balance is negative $62. So because she went into the negative, they charged her a fee, which makes her go even further negative. Okay, so be careful when you're writing these equations out, and be careful when you're changing your equations from subtraction sentences to addition sentences. Make sure that you keep all of your positives and negatives sorted out. And then you're just applying your negative rules that you learned when we were adding integers.